A man collapsed from a heart attack while playing with his baby, right in front of him. But what that toddler did next stunned everyone and brought tears to every eye in the room. Stay with us to hear the full story, and drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from. While the world slept under quiet suburban skies, Marcus was wide awake, scrubbing floors in towering office buildings. Glass elevators. Marble lobbies. The kind of places babies didn't belong. But every night he brought his 18-month-old son Liam with him anyway. There was no daycare. No family. No one left since Danielle, his wife, died giving birth to the boy he now cradled through every shift. So Marcus made it work. Diapers tucked into his supply cart. Bottles warmed in break-room microwaves. Liam swaddled in a blanket and placed gently beneath a receptionist's desk while his father mopped the conference room floors. It was relentless. But it was the only way to keep both his job and his son. Their apartment was barely more than 4 walls and a window. Drafty. Sparse. The crib? A laundry basket. The bathtub? A plastic bin. But Marcus gave Liam everything. Every ounce of energy. Every quiet moment of play. Every whisper of comfort after each long shift. And every night he offered the same promise, not just to soothe, but as a vow etched into his soul. One day, I'll give you more. Saturday mornings were sacred. The one pocket of time Marcus truly lived for. No fluorescent lights. No marble floors. Just Liam, the hum of morning cartoons, and silence that felt like peace, not emptiness. On one of those rare mornings, Marcus sat cross-legged on the floor. Liam's laughter echoing off the walls as they played with a worn plastic truck. Then the phone rang. He picked it up with one hand, his other arm cradling Liam against his chest. The number flashing on the screen made his stomach twist. "Mr. Carter," came a flat, emotionless voice. "We've received more complaints. Children aren't allowed on site. We have to let you go." Marcus froze. "Please don't do this," he said quickly, standing up. "I don't have anyone else. No daycare. No family. I've done everything I can." "This isn't personal," the voice said. "But it's final. Your contract is terminated, effective immediately." Then silence. Marcus stared at the phone as if hoping the words would vanish. But they didn't. It was gone. The last thread holding together his already fragile world had just snapped. He looked down. Liam beamed up at him, sticky hands gripping a scuffed toy, unaware that everything had changed. Marcus tried to take a breath. But something shifted. A crushing pressure gripped his chest, tight and unforgiving. His left arm began to tingle, then burn. Cold sweat poured from his forehead. Something was very wrong. Liam lifted the toy again, babbling softly, "Dada?" Marcus's hand trembled as he reached out, lips parting to speak. But no words came. He staggered back one step, then another. His knees buckled. In an instant he collapsed. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed like a thunderclap in the tiny apartment. Liam flinched. His toy slipped from his fingers and rolled away. The room went still. He stared at the empty space where his father had just stood, now replaced by a body, motionless, sprawled on the floor. One hand outstretched, breath shallow and faint. Liam didn't understand what was happening, but something in his tiny heart knew this wasn't how things were supposed to be. He toddled forward on unsteady feet, dropping to his knees beside Marcus. "Dada," he whispered, poking his father's cheek. Nothing. He patted again, harder. Still no movement. His face tightened. Confused. His bottom lip quivered. A small, uncertain whimper escaped him, and then, silence. Liam sat there wide-eyed, waiting. Like if he just stayed still long enough, his dad would rise and finish the game. But nothing happened. Then something shifted. His gaze moved to the couch by the front window. It was their spot. Where they played. Where they watched the world drift by. Where light always found them when it was time to nap. He crawled toward it, determined. Tiny hands gripped the cushions. Legs shaking as he tried to climb. One push, one pull. Slowly he hoisted himself up, the seat dipping under his weight. But he didn't stop. He reached the backrest, stood on shaky legs and pressed his hands to the glass. Outside the street was calm. Sunlight danced off car roofs. A bird flitted by. Inside, his father lay still. Liam's little hands slapped the glass. Once, twice, again. Over and over, he pounded on the window with all the strength his tiny body could muster. Not with understanding, but with instinct. Because somehow, he knew he had to make the world notice. His face turned red, his mouth open in a silent cry. No words, just frantic tapping. Louder. Faster. It wasn't just noise. It was instinct. The only way he knew to scream. The only way he knew to say, "Help us." And outside, someone heard. Naomi, the neighbor next door, was out on her porch, watering her rose bushes. Like she did every Saturday morning. The air was still. The street quiet. She leaned down, aiming her watering can at the roots, when something made her pause. A sharp, rhythmic sound. Not birds. Not the wind. She straightened. Looked up. And froze. In the window of the apartment next door, just above the couch, stood a baby, small, wobbly, his palms slapping the glass with wild urgency. His little face was flushed. His mouth open in what looked like a cry, though Naomi heard nothing. He kept pounding, again and again, as though trying to break through the pain. Panic surged through her. Something was wrong. Her eyes darted past him into the apartment. No adult. No sound. Where was the father? She dropped the watering can without a second thought, let it crash to the ground, and bolted across the small patch of lawn straight to their door. She banged her fist against it, once, twice, 3 times. "Hello? Is everything okay in there?" Silence. She pounded the door again, harder this time. "Sir, can you hear me? Is your baby okay?" Still, nothing. Naomi looked up. Liam was still at the window, still banging, but slower now. His tiny arms drooped with exhaustion. His forehead pressed to the glass. His eyes, wide, wet, and scared. That was all Naomi needed. She didn't wait. She ran to the side of the building, heart pounding in her chest. The back door, she reached for the handle. Unlocked. She pushed it open and stepped inside, bracing for what she might find. The smell hit her first. Baby powder. Cold air. Stillness, too still. She crept through the narrow hallway and into the living room, her eyes scanning every shadow. And then she saw him. A man, collapsed on the floor. One arm stretched toward an empty baby bottle. The other tucked awkwardly beneath him. His skin was pale. His chest barely rose. Naomi's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." She dropped to her knees beside him, hands trembling as she reached for his neck. A pulse. Faint. She fumbled for her phone. "Please, this is an emergency. There's a man. I think he's had a heart attack. He's not moving. And there's a baby here. Please send help." As she gave the address, her eyes shifted, drawn to the small figure nearby. Liam. He was crouched beside his father. Not crying. Just watching. And clutched tightly in his tiny hand, held close against his chest, was something small. Crinkled from his grip. A photo. Naomi ended the call, her breath shaky, and leaned in closer to the small shape Liam held. It was a work ID badge, creased, smudged, damp from his tiny fingers. Marcus's photo stared up at her, faded but still clear. He had clung to it the whole time. Her throat tightened. "You were trying to tell someone?" she whispered, her voice cracking. She reached out, gently lifting Liam into her arms. He didn't resist, just looked up at her, silent, wide-eyed, still. She pulled him close. "It's okay, sweetheart," she murmured, pressing her cheek to his. "I see you now. You did good. You did so good." The sirens hadn't arrived yet, but help was already there. Because Liam had made it come. Moments later, red and blue lights flashed across the walls. The stillness shattered as 2 paramedics rushed in, gear in hand. Naomi stepped aside, holding Liam tight to her chest as they dropped to the floor beside Marcus. Pulse is weak. BP's crashing. "Let's move now." They worked quickly. Oxygen mask. Defibrillator pads. A stretcher rolled in and Marcus's body was carefully lifted. Liam said nothing, his tiny hands clutching Naomi's shirt, eyes locked on the doorway as his father disappeared through it. Naomi followed close behind, arms wrapped around the boy who had sounded the alarm with nothing but his hands and his heart. And slowly the world began to return. White lights, beeping monitors, a faint steady hum. Marcus's eyes fluttered open, hazy and unfocused. His chest ached. His mouth was dry. He tried to sit up, but pain clamped down, anchoring him to the bed. A nurse appeared beside him, her voice calm and reassuring. "You're in the hospital. You had a heart attack, but you're stable now." His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried everything. "My son, where's my son?" The nurse offered a soft smile. "He's safe. He's right here. Your neighbor brought him in. She found you just in time." Before he could process it, the door creaked open, and Naomi stepped in, Liam tucked gently in her arms. Marcus's breath caught. Liam looked okay, whole, unharmed, but there was something different in his eyes, like he had grown up in the span of a single morning. Liam reached toward him. Naomi walked closer. "It was him," she said softly. "He saved you. I heard him pounding on the window. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have known anything was wrong." Marcus turned his head, eyes welling with tears. "You got help. You saved me, buddy." Liam leaned forward, placing his tiny hand over his father's chest. The same hand that had pounded that glass, begging the world to see. Marcus closed his eyes, overcome. "You're the reason I'm still here." He spent 3 days under observation. The doctors didn't sugarcoat it. "You're lucky to be alive," one said. "If it happens again, you might not get another chance." Marcus nodded. But all he could think about was how close Liam had come to losing him. How no one would have known, if not for Naomi. And she came back. Every morning before visiting hours even began. With food, diapers, clean clothes for Liam. She didn't ask. She just showed up. She paced the hospital hallway with Liam in her arms, rocking him gently when he grew restless, holding him with the kind of care only a mother would. That evening, as the room dimmed into quiet, Marcus finally asked, "Why are you doing this?" Naomi sat beside his bed, still cradling Liam as he slept soundly against her shoulder. Her voice came low, almost fragile. "I lost my husband 4 years ago. Car accident." She paused, swallowing the weight of what came next. "I was 5 months pregnant, a little boy." Her voice trembled. "I lost him too." The silence that followed was heavy. Years of quiet mornings. Empty rooms. Nothing left to hold. Nothing to hope for. She looked down at Liam, his tiny fingers curled against her arm. "Then I saw him in that window," she whispered. "And something in me just said, run. Don't wait. Get to him." Marcus couldn't speak. His throat tightened around 1,000 unsaid things. He just watched as the boy in her arms stirred gently. Liam blinked up at Naomi, then turned toward Marcus. He reached out one sleepy hand, paused, and turned back to Naomi. "Mama," he whispered. The room froze. Naomi didn't move. Her breath caught. She couldn't tell if she'd imagined it, if grief had played a trick on her. But Marcus had heard it too. He met her eyes, full, glistening. She didn't blink. Then, soft as a breath, Liam said it again. "Mama." A tear slid down Naomi's cheek before she could stop it. Marcus swallowed hard, emotion rising in his chest. But neither of them corrected the boy. They didn't need to, because in that single word, something long lost had returned. A connection, a healing, a quiet rebuilding of what life had once stolen from them both. And Marcus hadn't even been discharged yet. Whispers began drifting through the hospital. Not about Marcus's condition, but about his son. It started with the paramedics. They told the story in the break room, how they'd entered a quiet apartment to find a man unconscious on the floor, and a baby on the couch, his little hands red from pounding the window. The neighbor didn't call, they said. The baby did. A nurse retold it during her lunch break. Another, moved by what she'd seen, snapped a quiet photo. Liam, fast asleep on his father's chest, still clutching that bent and faded work ID like it was treasure. That image made its way online. No names, no hashtags, just 5 simple words. This baby saved his father. The internet didn't scroll past. It paused. By morning, headlines exploded across screens. Toddler brings help by banging on window. 1-year-old saves dad from heart attack, with bare hands. Liam hadn't spoken. Hadn't dialed a phone. Didn't know what a heart attack was. But somehow, he did the one thing no one else could. He made the world look. And the world listened. Donations came pouring in. Groceries. Diapers. A local company stepped up, offering Marcus a job with flexible hours and child care. But none of it, not the offers, the headlines, or the applause, meant more than one moment. That quiet second in the hospital, when Marcus looked into his son's eyes and whispered, "You saved me, Liam. You really did." And he meant it, because without that window, without those tiny fists, without the sound that broke the silence, he wouldn't be here. The headlines faded after a few weeks, but Marcus couldn't forget. And truthfully, he didn't want to, because what Liam did wasn't meant for viral attention. It was about something far deeper. Survival. Love. One quiet evening, as Naomi tucked Liam into a cot beside Marcus's hospital bed, she turned to him with gentle eyes and said, "You're not the only one, you know, working nights with no one to help. Maybe we can do something about that." Marcus didn't even pause. They poured in what they had. The donations from strangers. Naomi's quiet savings she'd never planned to spend. And from the moment that nearly broke them, they built something that could carry others. They called it Liam's Light. A night care center for parents like Marcus. Those who worked graveyard shifts, cleaned buildings, stocked shelves, drove late-night buses. Parents with no backup, no babysitter, but hearts full of devotion. It started in a modest brick building. Second-hand furniture. Warm yellow lights. It didn't look like much, but what it held was everything. Care. Dignity. Understanding. On opening night, Marcus walked the hallway slowly, turning out lights one room at a time. He paused at the nursery door. Inside, a few toddlers were nestled in sleeping bags, safe, warm, peaceful. And in the far corner, beneath the soft glow of a nightlight, was Liam, curled up beside Naomi, his tiny hand wrapped around hers. And in that moment, Marcus knew. The story hadn't ended. It had just begun. Marcus stood quietly in the doorway, his eyes fixed on the soft glow of the nursery. He used to whisper it in the dark when his world felt too heavy. One day, things will be better. And now, somehow they were. Because a baby who couldn't speak had taught the world how to listen. But survival had only been the start. What came after, Naomi's steady presence, the quiet bond they built, the love that slowly grew between them, was the life Marcus had thought he'd lost forever. 2 years later they married. A simple ceremony held behind the very walls of Liam's Light. Surrounded not by grandeur but by families they had helped, and lives they had quietly touched. Liam, now 3, stood in the center, grinning proudly. The same little boy who had once been so tiny, so helpless, and yet had changed everything. Sometimes Marcus would pause at the nursery window, watching as weary parents trickled in. Some came in scrubs. Some in fast food uniforms. Some with tears in their eyes and worry in their shoulders. They left lighter. Every time. And when they did, Marcus would smile. Because he remembered what it felt like to feel alone. And he knew what it meant to be saved by someone who never should have had to, but did. He looked over at Naomi and Liam, the family he never saw coming, but now couldn't imagine life without. And in a voice not shaped by memory, but by something deeper, truth, he said softly, "You didn't just save my life, son. You gave me a reason to live it." From that moment on, the world didn't need headlines. The story didn't belong to the internet anymore. It lived in the hearts they healed, in every parent they lifted, and every quiet miracle that followed. Because sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they're not strong enough to carry anything, not even tall enough to reach a doorknob. Sometimes they're just a baby, banging on a window, refusing to let love be forgotten. And if a child, barely steady on his feet, could save a life, just imagine what could happen if we all answered the call like that. Kind of love and courage. If this story moved you, drop a comment and let us know. Which moment hit you the hardest? Share it with someone who could use a reminder that even the smallest actions can make the biggest difference. And don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss another story that might touch your heart just as deeply. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next one.